Hi everybody, it's Annette from the Art of Intuition, and we are back in our second location to film. Okay, I want to dig into astrology a little bit tonight, so that's what we are going to do. I was listening to something and it was talking about the planets and different, all of our astrological signs are governed by different planets, and I've mentioned it before that everything's inside. Technically all the planets are inside. So what is the purpose then of astrology if we look at it from a higher perspective, if we look at it from a higher consciousness perspective? What are we talking about when we say that, and how does it really affect us as we're going through our ascension, as we're going through our aspects and integrating our aspects, raising our consciousness? Why do we even have astrology at all? What's the point of it? I mean, technically it is kind of still it's a separation in a sense, and it is still a third dimensional level of consciousness when you start talking about what sign you are. But I do get into it sometimes. One, it is a great entry into something else besides the physical. It is a entry point. It is a gateway. Just like Reiki is a gateway. People call them key codes, call them gateways. They should open you up to something besides, the physical. It opens you up to something else. It opens you up to something bigger than what you can see. And how come I feel weird today? Well, wait a minute. Is Mercury retrograde? That's something you'd always hear about, Mercury retrograde. So what do they all mean when we talk about them from a higher perspective, and not from a higher of judging the other perspectives, but just from a perspective that is of a higher consciousness? What are we talking about? So I have said before that your astrology sign kind of gets cleansed with everything else. You start off, and every sign you're born under, you have a reason to be born under it. People, we pick the birth date we come in on. Because the traits you have, every sign has traits that are going to assist it during its ascension process. Everyone's journey has a lot of similarities to it. Everyone's journey has a lot of the exact same energetics, but applied to different situations. But if you have to do certain things, you're going to find that certain traits you have kind of all been scrubbed and brought back, and you'll need them when you go through your ascension. I was born under the sign of Taurus, so it is a very stubborn sign. We're a very patient sign. And there are parts of that I need that perseverance of a Taurus to get through a lot of the ascension stuff I've had to go through. But there are other people that had to go through things in a different way. And they had to, maybe some of the forerunners of ascension had to come in as Capricorns or come in as something else. So we all have a reason to be born when we were born. It's not an accident. We all have a reason why it happened. But we want to go deeper than that and realize that all those are inside. All the planets are inside. The sun is inside us. When we start activating our solar sun inside, we start to get you'll start getting like burns on your body. And it looks like you've been out in the sun when you haven't. And you'll just all of a sudden have all these burns. I used to get them on my shoulders because you've activated so much light. And some people call it the soul light, some people call it the soul, so your solar sun. Everything gets activated inside. So when you start looking at outside being just a projection, when we have different planets move through your sign, when you have Mercury come in, which is a sign of communication, it's going to activate those planets inside of you. So if Mercury rules communication, it'll transition in your sign when you need to start integrating in that aspect. When you want to embody in that aspect, you're going to start to see, in this moment, I need this. When you see Mars come through your sign, Mars is a very combative planet. It's a very combative energy. There was always this trope, you don't go to war unless if Mars is retrograde, you don't go to war because you're not going to have any gump to go through it. So you'll find that there are different parts of your process where when Mars is transitioning through your sign, you're going to need that oomph. You're going to need that fight in a sense. Because there are so many parts of our ascension process, we're kind of fighting against our ego. We're fighting in a sense against the unconscious parts of us. We have to keep persevering through. When you get Venus in your sign, you're going to be looking at self-love. It's the planet of love. It's the planet of loving yourself and taking care of yourself. There are parts of this process where we have to really love our body because we never loved our body or appreciated our body. You're just going to find there are different transits that come through. When Neptune is in your sign, you're going to be in a dreamy phase. A lot of ascension is in a dreamy phase. So when you start looking outside at what's going on, And you can even take it to your micro level, you can take it to the macro level. It's just it's activating those planets inside of you, right? It's going to activate them more, and the attributes of those planets is going to start to shine through, and you're going to find yourself wanting, wanting to maybe speak up more, watching things expand more. Jupiter, when Jupiter comes through, that's a planet of great expansion. You're going to start to see how everything starts to get bigger, depending on what house it even goes in. But it's inside out. It is not outside in. People look to the outside and go, okay, all these things are happening outside. But it's activating the planets inside. It's activating those aspects of you. And it's all done for a reason in a particular time. What you'll find is every time you go through a transit, every time you go through any of these cycles, it's going to go deeper in. You're going to get more and more activated. And the parts anywhere in your life where you're not standing up for yourself, all of a sudden you might have, if we go to Saturn energy, which is a very no-nonsense energy, I would say the counterpart to that would be Assyrian galactic energy. When you start activating that planet, activating that aspect, that is a very no-nonsense. Anything in your life that is not aligned will collapse very quickly when Saturn is in your sign. Anyone who's gone through any time Saturn in any of your houses, you know what happened to that house. Everything in it pretty much collapsed because it wasn't aligned. So when you start looking at these planets as what they're going to do for you, what they have the capacity to do for you, and why they're there, and why it is all inside. Cancer is ruled by the moon. So if you came in under the sign of Cancer, you're going to have, I would say that's your more predominant, it's going to be a predominant aspect when we talk about these types of aspects, because that's the one you were born under. It's just going to be a more prominent aspect for you, just like everyone has more prominent aspects, and eventually we have to merge all those into one. So it's like it becomes, every part becomes all of you, and you really don't separate off into the different aspects. But you will find there are some that were just more, I'm trying to think of the word I want to use here. They were just more easy for you to flow into, so, and if we even go with masculine, feminine energy, divine feminine, divine masculine, which is different than human masculine, human feminine energy. Divine feminine is just a being energy, where human feminine is kind of a whiny energy. Divine masculine is a doing energy, whereas human masculine energy is a very, I don't want to really say narcissistic energy, but it's a kind of a blaming energy. It's not you, it's me energy. Masculine energy, people think because you're in a male body, it's masculine energy, and we hold both. And then eventually you transcend human masculine, human feminine, and you get to divine masculine, divine feminine energy. And even those, you'll find there's some people who just, they have to play that aspect more because of the realities they created, because of the roles they said they were going to play in Ascension, because of the work they had to do to move the collectives forward. They might flow more toward divine masculine. They might flow more coming in the sign of Capricorn and having Saturn more predominantly in their chart from inside. Remember, it's just that planet is very strong inside of them. So they're going to have more of that gumption because what their purpose was in Ascension. Whereas for me, I was born in the sign of Taurus, so I'm going to have Venus more as I'm going to go more toward a softer side, more of a divine feminine side, even though I do have divine masculine. I tend to play more on the divine feminine side, though I can be divine masculine when I need to be that and pull things out and get things done very quickly if I have to pull that out. But I'd rather most of my journey, I can kind of be in divine feminine. It's probably more of a softness. We all have to have both, but you're going to find there are certain ones you're going to see that you have to do more. Right? There's going to be some you're going to be called to do more of, and you're going to have that support. You're going to have that planetary support from inside out. So when we start looking at, I would always say when Mercury retrogrades, it retrogrades inside. It retrogrades inside, and I usually have more issues with that right before it retrogrades from inside of me. I struggle with things. Things go wonky for me in the beginning because it's slowing down. My body's off. Things aren't working right. Everything just feels a little off because my body's reversing it, right? My body's starting to reverse it, and what it does is it makes you communicate clearer, makes you communicate more. It makes you be more aware of what you're saying, because, and there's a reason for that, because we have to get clear on our communication. When we're in our human aspect, we're not clear on our communication. We don't really care about communication. We don't want to communicate, basically. And with all the cell phones and everything else now, it's very easy to not communicate. You know, people would rather not communicate than actually communicate, because if we communicate, we have to actually say how we feel, because it's hard to hide when you're actually face-to-face communicating with someone. There's a lot of ways we can kind of bury ourselves in now. We don't have to do that. So there are different reasons these things happen. So when you start looking at what traits do I need, you know, you're going to be able to go back and look at your journey. And if you are into astrology, some people never really get into it. I was into it, not heavy into it, but I know enough about it to carry on a, you know, talk enough about it. Some people don't have any interest in it at all. But if you go back and look at different things you were going through, even in your human existence, you had that planetary support when you needed it, but it's inside out. It's not that it was supporting you outside in. That's just how at the time you viewed it. So if you go now and look at it, okay, it's inside of me. So the next time the sun is in a certain house, you know, in my chart, and that Leo is ruled by the sun, you're going to find that, you know, you might be in a lighter side of ascension, or in a second you might be in a part of your ascension where things feel a little bit heavier, but it kind of brings a balance to you in that moment. You're just going to find that everything plays into your ascension process. Everything you do is in your ascension. Everything that happens is part of your process. Even when you're human, it's still part of your process. We just didn't realize we were actually in the process. We didn't realize at the time that's what we were doing, you know. We had no idea. You'll even see it on a collective level when you see some planets come in. Every couple hundred years, you'll have different planetary lineups that haven't been around since, you know, we had one a couple years ago. It hadn't been around since, like, Revolutionary War. And they were talking about that a few years ago. The planets haven't been aligned like this. So look at all the upheaval. So you're going to see that there are collectives that plug up, or going to plug up to certain astrology also. And on a planetary level, we will plug up to certain things, but it's still activating inside of us. You know, it's still, like, if you look at Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and when you have that's like a sudden changes. When you have those sudden shifts, you know, sudden thing, everything starts to kind of move very quickly. Sudden things start to happen. Realities start to collapse. Timelines start to end. Sometimes our human would say it was very sudden. Whereas we look at them energetically, we could tell a long time ago that shit was over. We just kept holding on to the timeline, thinking we could string it out longer. You know, can I string this out another few years? As humans, we're like, can I string it out another few years or a few decades? Because it's such a slow moving aspect of us, and we're on a very, very slow level of our video game, in a sense. We're just really going as slow as we can go to hit our marks. But we're not really getting very far, but we're going so slow. Whereas when you're in ascension, you're going very fast. And when you're more conscious, and more conscious you become, you're even going quicker. You know, so you start to see everything. You start to see that timeline's going to end. And we just get to the point where, can I hold on for one more day? Can I hold this timeline for another week? Can I hold this timeline for another couple of months? Can I buy more time here because I feel like it's appropriate for me to stay here for a little bit longer? You'll just notice all these things start to happen. And we'll first look at it like it's, you know, it's just so different from how we viewed it in our human consciousness. So astrology is no different. But we want to make sure we look at it from inside out. It's not affecting us from the outside. It's activating those aspects from the inside. And if we are not stepping up in certain realities, and we are called to, like if we are called to, let's say we have an issue with communication, and Mercury is retrograde. It's retrograde inside of us. So anywhere where we're not communicating, it's going to be shown to us very quickly that, okay, that's not aligned with this aspect, with this planet. You're not aligned with that. You know, you're not aligning with that right now. You're not communicating clearly when you could. You're just choosing not to. So now you're going to over communicate until you can communicate more and more and more. And it goes along with the astrological signs. There's flip sides to everything, but it all gets cleaned up. Everything kind of gets sent out, you know, it gets car washed in a sense, and it comes back purified. You know, everything comes back in a purified fashion. So when you start looking at astrology and looking at when things happen, and sometimes it is funner to go back and look at what you needed in that time and how your people will do their birth chart, you know, just to get an idea of, well, what is going on. You'll also see numerology is another one people will do. But everything is inside out. So let's take our focus off the outside and look at which planets do you resist? What planets aren't really that much in your sign? And when they come in your sign, they wreak a lot of havoc because it's not your normal, you know, it's not your normal sign, like your opposing sign. You're going to find if you look at your opposing sun sign in astrology, like if I'm a Taurus, I'm going to look at Scorpio because that's my opposing sign in a sense. You know, we have a lot of similarities, but there are certain signs we normally don't get along with from a human perspective. I was like, why don't I get along with those? Because it wasn't my natural tendency to go with a lot of what this sign portrayed, you know, what these planets would come in and do, you know, with these planets, what their attributes were. That was not my normal set point. So I didn't enjoy that energy. I didn't enjoy that sign. But we have to get past that. We have to integrate in all the planets. We have to integrate everything inside to where we can show every sign, where we can show, cats are growling, where we can show every sign, where we can pull out everything we need to pull out. So, okay, good luck and keep practicing the art of intuition.